Hello the internet and welcome back to my channel. This is my vintage CPU box, and yes, it's a big mess, and as you can imagine it's pretty easy to damage CPUs in this box because everything is allowed to travel everywhere. Also in this box I have some untested CPUs which I got from a donation on this video, and on that video I think I said I would test them on a separate video because I didn't want to make a very long video testing one CPU after the other. So what we're gonna do today, we're gonna test all the CPUs. I'm gonna also try and revive some of these slot 1 CPUs that I deemed as dead in that previous video, and then I think I'd like to tidy up this box. And to do that, I have some 3D prints from today's sponsor, PCBWay. It's the first time I'm ordering 3D prints from PCBWay, so I'm quite curious. And if I've done my homework correctly, these should be stackable trays, which should be able to give a nice home, a nice tidy home to my whole collection, whether it's vintage CPUs or slightly newer ones. And I think I will also take the opportunity to check why my only slot 1 motherboard, it's an Intel motherboard, doesn't recognize this Pentium 3 CPUs as Pentium 3. It only says it's a Pentium 2 500, but there's no Pentium 2 500 ever manufactured. So we're gonna check why that happens. So there's quite a lot of things to do. I would say let's not waste any more time and let's begin with the slot 1 processors and motherboard. Alright, I got this Intel motherboard. It says E139761, and I'm not entirely sure whether it's the Seattle or Seattle 2. It's not clear from the RetroWeb, it's not clear from here. They both have the same code here, so I'm going to turn it on and see whether the BIOS is telling me anything. I've got the Pentium 3 processor here, because that's the one which has been detected as Pentium 2, and on one of my previous videos I couldn't make this work, and I think the reason is I went back to my old footage. It needs an AGP card to start. I'm assuming that in the BIOS you can then change the option to start from a PCI. So I'm not using my PCI card, I'm using a Matrix Millennium, I think it is, and that should work. And also have my postcard analyzer with my 90 degrees adapter here. The project is now public. It happens to be on the PCBWay store, but you can download it for free and you can do whatever you want with it. It's very simple. It's no rocket science. So first thing first, let me try and identify this board. Let's turn this on from the power supply now. And this board has this weird behavior, then it starts as soon as you power up from the power supply. I might get yes, I have an output. And the BIOS is telling me this is an SC440BX2, so this is the Seattle 2, and I can go and check for BIOS updates and everything. As you can see, this is seeing a Pentium 2 processor at 500 MHz, and I remember reading some comments of some of you were saying, hey, you have a rare CPU, because we didn't know there was a Pentium 2 500. No, it's probably just the motherboard misdetecting it, let's put it that way. So I see that we have the very long string of numbers as a BIOS. Let's see whether there is an update, and let's try and update the board before we move on with everything else. I'm assuming that a BIOS update will have the code for the Pentium 3 CPUs. And the BIOS of this board is not even available on the RetroWeb because the post string says 0009 and the RetroWeb has 0003, and then we jump to 0012. So maybe I can save a backup and I can upload it on the RetroWeb. I don't know who might be interested in 0009, but anyways, what matters is the latest version for this board is 0024. So there's quite a few updates available for this board. Let me plug a floppy drive, let me make a floppy with the update, and then we'll try the update on this board. Alright, I managed to boot on MS-DOS 622, and I've changed a few bits on the BIOS, including the date, and also the fact that the board now won't go back to the last state when power is removed, which was why it was starting by itself earlier on. Now let's run the BIOS upgrade utility. I'm hoping it runs on the MS-DOS, and let's see whether there's an option to extract the original BIOS. Alright, I got the BIOS floppy made, and I can see from the autoexec.bat that it's just running a flashing utility iFlash with the BIOS name, so that's pretty easy. And I can see if I'm running iFlash / I have an option /s, which allows me to save the existing BIOS. Now, unfortunately, I can see that Intel has this weird way of saving the BIOSes, and the BIOS for this board comes into 4 or 5 different files, and even when I'm saving it, I can't save the whole thing. I have to choose whether to save the BIOS, the language, the user of the recovery areas. And I guess I'll need to make like 4 different files. Is that going to be useful to anybody considering it's such an old version? But let me save everything on the floppy or on the compact flash. You never know, it might end up on the retro web anyways as a zipped file. And the utility is telling me that the save area option is not supported on this machine. So I think I'll just go ahead and flash the board. There's no point. Had it been a newer file, fair enough, a newer version, but it's not, it's pretty old. Let's go ahead and flash everything. Well, that was quick. Let's reboot and see if that worked. And yes, we got a Pentium 3 500 MHz this time, and the version is 0024. So the process totally worked, and we have newly flashed motherboard. Perfect. Everything is still working, the CPU is properly detected. Now, let me test the other CPUs. I've got this one which says it's working. I've got these 2 which were not doing anything, and I want to try a couple of tricks before I'm giving up 100% of them. Now, for simplicity, I've wrote P3 500 on this one. Let's check this one. This should, well, it says Pentium 2 on it. Let's see whether it's still working and the board is still detecting it totally fine. And my capture device doesn't seem to like anything today, so I have another video card. It's a gigabyte. Something is wrong with my Matrox Millennium. Maybe it doesn't like OSSC for whatever reason. The CPU is working. It's recognized as Pentium 2, but only 233 MHz, and this should be at 266 MHz. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. I mean, this should be pretty automatic. Let me try and find out. As you'd expect, this motherboard is jumperless. That means you don't have to change jumpers to set the speed of the CPU or the voltage, that kind of stuff. But looking in the manual, there is a paragraph that says when you replace the CPU, you need to follow this procedure to change the speed of the CPU. And apparently this little jumper here is used to configure the CPU speed. So I understand I need to go to BIOS config, like this. And then I can turn on the motherboard, and I have no idea exactly what's going to happen. Oh, well, I'm in the BIOS, but there's an extra tab. It's called maintenance, and it has the processor speed on it. Why is that even necessary? Why someone needs to change a jumper to get into a hidden section of the BIOS to change the speed of the processor when it should be completely automatic? That's weird. And I do have 266, 300 up to 533. So I could actually do some overclock on this board, but I don't understand why this is necessary. With these other CPU, that wasn't necessary. You went to 500 straight away. So why is that even, I don't know. And why do you need a jumper to do that? Why just not have like a password protected section on the BIOS? Anyways, set this to 266, and I guess it's F10. And then, oh, jumper must be returned to normal position for setting to take effect. It is safe to turn off the system now. It's amazing. So this is just a hidden section protected by hardware to change the speed of the CPU. That's so weird. And there we go. Now we have Pentium 2 processor at 266 MHz. Completely unnecessary. I've been told, I was told that Intel motherboards are a bit weird. They are indeed. Well, the CPU is working totally fine, so let's move to these dead CPUs. I've got a little trick that was explained by a friend that I would like to try to see whether there's anything I can do to understand or ascertain whether these CPUs are completely dead. The friend I'm talking about is Alex of Bits and Bolts. Take a look at his channel if you don't know it. It's pretty cool, it's pretty amazing. And Alex also sent me this very motherboard some time ago, which is amazing, especially now it's fully up to date. So thanks again, Alex. Alex said that if the CPU is not working, chances are the die is cracked. And sometimes the crack can be like invisible. And one way to expose it is to spread some alcohol on it, wipe it off, and then bend or push on the die itself. And if there is a crack, alcohol will come out from the crack, making it visible. Now, there is definitely some damage already on this die, and I noticed that when I first tested the CPU. Whether that's enough to completely destroy the CPU or not, I don't know. So let's try with the alcohol. And no, I don't see anything on this die at all, so let's try on the other one. No, I don't see anything, though this one has a bigger crack in the corner. Now, do you think that that crack could be the only reason for this CPU to be completely dead? I don't know. What about the other CPU? These are even smaller, so I don't know, leave a comment down below if you think that that is the reason why these two CPUs are not working. That being said, I have updated the BIOS of this motherboard. You never know, let's give these CPUs a quick test and just confirm that they're not working. I haven't got a heatsink for this CPU, but if I remember right, it's completely dead, so it only really takes a few seconds to see whether there's any activity whatsoever. Power on, 3, 2, 1, go. No activity whatsoever, and the die is definitely getting very hot. So the CPU is being energized, but there's no activity whatsoever. Let's try the other one. 3, 2, 1, go. Completely dead. And again, the CPU is getting very hot, but nothing is happening. So no, these CPUs look to be completely dead. There's only one of the two CPUs which is missing some capacitors at the back. Let me show you. This is the back of the actual CPU. As you can see, there's some components missing. Oh, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Now, I believe that these are all decoupling capacitors, I think they're called, or bypass capacitors. I don't think that the CPU will be completely dead without them. That being said, I guess it would be a nice thing to try and swap them out completely for fun and see if this CPU is giving any life whatsoever. So let me, I think I'll salvage them from the other CPU, and if this then comes back to life, happy days, otherwise we'll move on. Zero expectations that this is now gonna work, but let's give it a go. 3, 2, 1, go. And it's not working, of course. So I guess I'll consider these two CPUs as gone, and we can now move to the next set of CPUs. I think I'll go with the Athlon CPUs that I'd like to check. Nope, there is a plot twist. I thought I would warm up the package here, because it's BGA. And if it's got a hit at some point, well, you know, BGA can crack the solder balls underneath. And look at that, I think it is now warm enough. Look at the postcard, 3, 2, 1, go. It's doing something! Is it gonna boot? Is it gonna explode in my face? It's working! Right, so this only needs a reflow. Oh my gosh, it needs a proper BGA reflow. Well, I guess I cannot resist, and I'll try and do a quick reflow of these CPU. Let's see if it works. Now, is this gonna work? I'm not sure, but if it does, I'll transfer the heatsink and we'll give it a proper test. 3, 2, 1, go. It's working. Right, let me transfer the heatsink and see if the CPU actually is working totally fine. Amazing. Right, of course the heatsink broke when I removed the working CPU. I didn't know they were so fragile, so I put some tape to try and make the pressure even. Well, I'm hoping the CPUs have some sort of overheating protection. If not, it's not the end of the world. I'm not even sure whether it's working or not. Let's turn it on. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, it's should be posting. That's so cool. It was dead. Probably the other CPU is also working totally fine. It's just BGA problem. Clearly those CPUs have been hit by something. It's definitely working. This is so cool. I wasn't expecting to fix this CPU on this video, not by BGA. Totally working. Perfectly fine. I didn't check the speed this CPU has been detected. Maybe we need to go into the BIOS and change it. But the point is, that's kind of not the point. Might need to identify what kind of CPU is that. Actually, let's do that straight away. This is another Pentium 2, but this is running at 400 megahertz, so it's not bad, assuming that's the actual speed. But, if it's not 400, it's going to be something else, and it needs to be changed in the BIOS. Great. Now, I don't think I want to go ahead and try and fix the other one. Might need to do that off camera, but clearly that was a BGA problem. I wasn't expecting that. Now, let's move to the Athlon now. Now, I guess it is time to unwrap my CPU trays. I'm pretty curious to see what I managed to order. Alright, I finally managed to unwrap those items, and my apologies to PCBWay, because these have been sitting on a shelf for quite some time here, for whatever reason. So I will link the project where I found these trays down below in the description. This is the first time I'm ordering 3D printed items from PCBWay, and I have to say the quality is pretty high. These are pretty solid, and well, the project, which, that doesn't depend on PCBWay, the project is quite nice. You can see here on the sides, I have an indication of what is on each tray. And in theory, if I've done my math right, I should have space for all my CPUs, including like a little box of modern-ish CPUs I've got. This stack of CPU trays is looking absolutely fantastic. It's so tidy. Everything is so messy at the moment. So it's time for me now to get all my CPUs and fill in this nice little tower of CPU trays. This is absolutely fantastic. I'm so happy that everything is now nicely stacked in here, all my CPUs, and yes, I got everything in here rather than in a box, just waiting to be damaged. I don't know why I ordered this Intel 35 by 35. I don't seem to have CPUs like that. and I only had one 40 by 40. And also I think I made a mistake ordering this socket 8, but anyways, I'm reusing it for this. I think it's a socket 4, and I believe these are Xeon processor. I don't think I have a motherboard for that, but everything fits perfectly fine. And most importantly, I can, if I need more space, I can just order some more, and this will just stack off one on top of each other. And most importantly, my most used CPUs, the Socket 7, are now very nicely and stacked in here. So pretty happy. Absolutely, the construction is absolutely perfect. Thank you very much, PCBWay, for this. If you want something like this, I believe I found a project on Thingiverse. The link is down below in the description, and it's pretty easy. You just need to download the file and upload it on PCBWay and select a postal service, and that's it. You will get the 3D printed items at your place. Of course, PCBWay can also manufacture PCBs for you, but this time I went for 3D prints, and I have to say, I am extremely pleased by the quality of this, and I look forward to ordering more. Whenever I get some more CPUs, different sockets, something that doesn't fit, I will just order something else, find the relevant project, or I can probably make it myself if I'm good at SketchUp or something like that. But anyways, this is absolutely fantastic. I am so happy. If someone knows a nice project that can hold slot 1 CPUs, that would be great, though this is obviously without the heatsink and it's easy to store. With the heatsink, you probably need something different. But anyways, if someone knows something, if you can let me know down below in the comment section, that'd be fantastic. Let me thank PCBWay for these again. Take a look at the website, PCBWay.com. The link is also down below in the description. And let me thank PCBWay for sponsoring my videos on my channels, because their help makes these videos possible. So thank you very much, PCBWay. And now let's continue with those CPUs. Alright, I moved to a Socket 462 platform. This is a Gigabyte, I think, GA7V-N400M. And I have an AMD Athlon that says AXDA 2500DK4D. And I understand that this is a 1.8 gigahertz CPU. So the pins seem to be okay. I don't see anything bent or missing. There is a little bit dust bunny here. There we go, it's gone. And I don't think I want to go ahead and install a heatsink every single time. Obviously, these CPUs will need a heatsink. I'll just put something on top. I put a little bit of thermal paste, and these, I think it's an Xbox heatsink, if I remember right. I'm hoping it doesn't touch anything, but you know, anyways, the heatsink would be there anyways. So as long as it's flat with the die, it should be fine. I haven't got a PCI 90 degrees riser, so unfortunately the postcard is facing this way. I can't even see it myself. Is this gonna work? Let's give power to the motherboard and let's try and turn it on. And there's no activity whatsoever. Okay, well, clearly the postcard is not happy with that. Yes, AMD Athlon XP 2500. Perfect. I need to be careful because if I remove the heatsink, probably the CPU will overheat instantly, and I'm not entirely sure that these CPUs have any protection. And it seems to be working totally fine. So I'll put a green check mark on it so I know it's working, and let's move to the next one with the same socket. Next CPU is another Athlon. It's A1200 AMS3B, and I understand that's a 1.2 gigahertz CPU. I don't see any damage with the pins. They all look okay. There's no dust or anything. So let's try again and see what we get out of it. Same risky business with heatsink. Let's power the motherboard and let's try and turn it on. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, well, the postcard is useless, so let's wait for some video output, hopefully. I don't see activity on the LEDs. I had them before, so no, this doesn't seem to be working. I have no video outputs whatsoever. Let's try and reseat the CPU. You never know. It's definitely getting warm. At least the heatsink is hot. There are no missing pins that I can see. There's no damage to the die. So let's try this again. You never know. 3, 2, 1, go. No, I don't see activity whatsoever. And now this CPU is completely dead. I can feel that the heatsink is getting really hot for a CPU which is not doing anything. So maybe it's just broken, maybe shorted inside or something like that. So this is bad. It will go into my parts bin. If I need some pins, I get some legs. Let's move to the next one, which is another AMD of the same socket. Next CPU is an AMD Duron, and this is DHD 1100 AMT1B. I understand it's a 1.1 gigahertz. Now, this one I see quite some damage on the corners. I remember these CPUs were very easy to damage because the die is exposed, it's small in the middle, and when you put the heatsink, it's very easy to just chip the edges. I'm not sure how critical that was, but I would say quite some damage, so I doubt that this is gonna work. Good news is that I don't see an issue with the pins, so let's plug it in. Let's do the same little risky business with the heatsink, and let's see if this by any chance does anything. Power up, 3, 2, 1, go. And I don't see activity on the LEDs, maybe. The reset flashed for a moment. I don't have a video output, unfortunately. And unfortunately, there's no video output whatsoever, no activity here on the LEDs, so that's another bad CPU that goes into the parts bin. And just to be on the safe side, I went back with the first CPU that we tested and it's still working. So my capture device and the motherboard, everything still works. So unfortunately, those two CPUs are faulty. Alright, we've changed motherboard because I've got a couple of AMD K6, I guess, and I've decided to go back to my Shuttle 591P, which is kind of my favorite board and also not favorite one. This is the one I've almost killed in this video, and that's the one that refused to work in the previous video. So I was curious to see, I fixed the slot one, there was nothing wrong with it, but I found why it wasn't working. Can I fix this one as well? So before starting with the CPU which I'm testing, I've got another CPU from my stash which should work. It's a Pentium 233. I've set up everything as usual, got my usual trusty PCI card and some RAM and the keyboard. So is it gonna work? Well, let's give it some power and let's find out. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh. No, it's doing something. The other day it was... Oh, it's posting. Look at that. 233, yeah, it's correct. And these are, I don't know how much RAM, 128? Yes, 128. Right, this seems to be working. The other day it was stuck on, when it starts, it's like C100, it was stuck there. And it wouldn't go anywhere. I have a feeling that this board is working intermittently, and that's probably why I decided to move to the other 591P in that old video where I couldn't get anything to work. So maybe this is not the right board to test unknown CPUs, but I don't know, I feel optimistic and I want to give it a go. Let's make sure I can actually get into DOS and run some software first. Well, what can I say? This seems to be working totally fine, so I don't know. Again, I feel this is intermittent, but anyways. Right, let's begin with the first CPU. The first CPU is an AMD K62 model 450AHX, so it's a 450 megahertz, so it's a 100 megahertz of bus with 4.5 multiplier, 2.4 volts, and this board can do 100 megahertz of FSP. So let's set all the jumpers. The pins of this CPU are perfect, so this can go straight in the socket. Will it work? Let's test it. 3, 2, 1, go. Nope. There's absolutely no life. So let me double check that I've got the right voltage, the right frequencies and everything. Right, so my mistake, I was giving the CPU 3.2 volts. I hope that didn't kill it. Hopefully for just a second or so it's okay. I just misunderstood the last column here, so instead of 2.4 volts I went for the other side of the table of 3.2 volts. So let's try this again. 3, 2, 1, go. Nope, still nothing. Now, because I said I don't really trust this board too much, I've got another K62 in the socket. This is a 500 megahertz. I've just set the voltage jumper to automatic. That's what the manual says I should do, so that should take care of everything. To be honest, I left the frequency at 450. I'm assuming that it works with 500 megahertz CPU. Let's see if this gives any signs of life. 3, 2, 1, go. Yes. C100, but then it does things and you get something. Okay, so the motherboard is working, the voltage is probably okay. So either that CPU doesn't work or I fried it with 3.2 volts. What do you think? Do you think that like a 1-2 seconds of the excessive V-core voltage could fry that CPU? Just leave a comment down below because I do not know. Remember, the original voltage is 2.4, so yes, it is definitely too high. Is that like so high to fry the CPU? I really don't know. Now, the pins of this CPU are totally fine, though I see some dirt, like black speckles, whatever that is. So let me blow this dust off and maybe I'll use some contact cleaner, you never know. So no, unfortunately this CPU doesn't work. Again, whether I killed it, I don't know, but it is definitely not working. So this is going into my parts bin. The next CPU is a good one. It's a K62-550 AGR, 2.3 volts core, 3.3 I/O, and this is not in the greatest shape. There's quite a lot of, I don't want to call it thermal paste, I mean whatever this crusty stuff is on the top, and there's quite a lot of dust bunnies within the pins, so I'll have to clean this thoroughly, because if I try and plug this up it will probably clog my socket here. So let me clean it, and hopefully this is going to work, because it's 550 megahertz, it's quite good. Multiplier is set to 5.5. Will it work? Let's give it a go. 3, 2, 1, go. Yes, maybe. It's done something. It is working. Amazing. This is posting. I have a feeling I killed the previous one. I feel so sorry. I think I'm going to use the automatic feature from now on this board. CPU has been detected correctly. K62 and at 550. And yes, the CPU seems to be working fine. I'm pretty happy. This is probably one of my fastest Socket 7 I've got. I think I used to have like a K62 modded to become K63, which died for whatever reason. I have a feeling this is the fastest one, or maybe the same one I have. So, fantastic. This is great. I'll put a green check on it. There you go. Doom is finished. So I'll put a green check maybe at the back, so it doesn't come off when I'm removing the thermal paste at the front. And I think that's it for the Socket 7 platform, so the next CPUs will need a new motherboard. The next processors are Socket 775, so we need to move to something a bit more modern. This is a Gigabyte GA-G31M S2L, and that's the motherboard I'm using for 775 Sockets processors. Now I appreciate that this can be a bit boring because these CPUs are not vintage anymore, they seldom fail, and there's nothing to set on the motherboard, but I'd like to know whether they're working or not. On this motherboard I keep my most powerful 775 CPUs I've got. It's a quad, Intel quad something, I cannot remember. Let's make sure that everything works before we test the CPUs, so let's give power to the board and let's turn it on. 3, 2, 1, go. Ah, that's the wrong cable. Yes, nothing wrong with the board, it just had the wrong VGA cable and it was saying something, I couldn't see it, so let's restart it just to find out what CPU that is. It's a G31 chipset and this is an Intel Core 2 Quad at 2.4 GHz. This obviously works, let's test one of these CPUs. Not sure how much you can see that, but first CPU is a Core 2 Duo at 2.13 GHz. CPU is in good shape, nothing wrong at the back here. So let's give it a good clean and let's test it. Wow, it definitely needed a clean. Oh, power up, 3, 2, 1, go. And we do have an output, it's a Core 2 6400 at 2.13 GHz. I might have said Core 2 Duo earlier on, but no, that's just a Core 2. Let's give it a quick test. I got MS-DOS running. I use this board for Windows 10, to be honest. It's very slow, but it can run Windows 10 for whenever I need to do whatever. So it should be running MS-DOS, yes, and we can just run, the usual benchmark real quick. This is running with the integrated graphics, so as you can see, I haven't got a graphic card, and everything seems to be working totally fine, as I suspected. Kind of boring, because these CPUs, they seldom fail. The motherboards are completely automatic in terms of voltages and frequencies and everything, so it's even more difficult to damage them. There are no pins on the CPU, so, you know, fair enough. I have another Core 2. Let's test the other one. The next CPU, it says Pentium at 3 GHz. Is this supposed to be better or worse than the Core 2? I have absolutely no idea. So, well, the CPU looks in good shape. Nothing really wrong at the back. I'll give it a good clean as the other one, which was pretty filthy. And hopefully this one is going to work as well. And we have another working CPU. This is a Pentium dual-core E5700 at 3 GHz. Let's try and run the same Doom test, which I appreciate for this modern CPU is probably not the best, and see whether this is faster than the other one or not. Everything works fine, and this Pentium has scored 72 frames per second, which is puzzling, because I had a look online, and this Pentium is supposed to be 30% faster than the other CPU, but the other CPU scored 89 frames per second, so I'm not sure what's going on, but I think this is not for this video. The bottom line is, both of these CPUs are totally working, and we can move to, I believe, the last two CPUs. Just out of curiosity, I've run the Doom benchmark on the Quad CPU, and it scored exactly like the Core Duo CPU. I believe the frequency, the base frequencies between the two CPUs is exactly the same. This has two extra cores, which obviously are not being used by MS-DOS and Doom, so the result is absolutely the same. Also remember that the video card on this motherboard is on the motherboard, so obviously that is the bottleneck, and the CPU doesn't have a massive role into the outcome. The next two CPUs are Intel Celeron. One is a 533 MHz and one is a 633 MHz, and they look like in decent shape. There's quite a lot of dust bunnies here at the back, but I don't see any damage with the pins. There's a little bit of dirt, and that's it. Now, the problem is that these are socket 370, and I don't have a motherboard with a socket 370, so unfortunately I'm unable to test this too, which will stay as untested until I stumble into a motherboard socket 370. Now, don't go away, wait till the end of the video if you want to know what happened to the other Pentium 2 CPU, and I guess that now it's time for a little recap. And I guess we reached the end of the video. I had great fun testing all these CPUs with all those motherboards, and particularly fixing the slot 1 CPU, and I wasn't expecting that. And wait until the very end of the video and we'll take a look at the other one and see if I can fix that as well. I am super impressed by these little trays. I'm so happy that now my CPU collection is not like floating in a box waiting for pins to get damaged and kind of stuff. This is absolutely amazing. I'm looking forward to expanding my collection, which is going to be extremely easy using these freely downloadable projects from the internet and the PCBWay. I hope you enjoyed the videos too. If you did, as usual, I'd appreciate a thumb up down below, and also consider subscribing to this channel and my other channel if you like this kind of things. Don't forget I'm also on Facebook and on Patreon, and my Patreon names are scrolling at the side of the screen. Thank you very much for your support. You're absolutely amazing. If you want to join me on Patreon, there is a free tier, so no excuses. But if you don't want to join me on Patreon, which is very much understandable, well, maybe you can buy me a coffee, and the link is also down below in the description. If you don't want to buy me a coffee, very much understandable. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you again soon. That's it for today. Thank you very much. I wish you a great day, and hope to see you again here soon on my channels for my next videos. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Bye-bye. Alright, I was too curious to see whether I could fix this CPU as well. So after I fixed the other one, I continued and I tried to fix this one as well. I reflowed it exactly as the other one, and I haven't tested it yet, so I'm pretty curious whether this is gonna work or not. I didn't test this with hot air as with the other one, so I have no idea whether this can work or not. Now we have to keep in mind that this CPU is still missing the capacitors at the back of the CPU, which I used to fix the other one. Now I doubt that that can prevent the CPU from starting, but we have to keep that in mind. Will it work? Let's give it a go. 3, 2, 1, go. No, it's not working, and the CPU is getting scorching hot as expected. So I would say that this is not fixed. I don't think it's the capacitors. That being said, I realized that I had some 100 nanofarad capacitors, so let me install these capacitors, you never know, and then we'll test again. Is this gonna work? I seriously doubt it. Let's give it a go. 3, 2, 1, go. And it doesn't work. Yeah, capacitors are not so critical for the operations of a CPU. So that's it. 1 out of 2. Thanks for watching.